Commander Vex-9 stood before the massive viewing screen on his command ship. The stars looked the same as they always did. Cold and distant, perfect for keeping peace across the galaxy. His ship was one of 300 in the Third Fleet. Each ship could destroy a planet. Together, they could wipe out entire star systems. This was how the Zephyrian Council kept order. For 3,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy through fear. When a new species developed space travel, the Zephyrians would visit them. They would destroy some ships and a few cities. After that, the new species would always surrender. It was simple. It worked. Vex-9 had done this many times before. His gray skin showed the scars of 100 battles, though most were very short fights. Few species ever tried to resist after the first demonstration. The smart ones surrendered immediately. The stupid ones tried to fight and died quickly. Today's target was different, though. The report said this species called themselves humans. They lived on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. The planet was called Earth, according to the scouts. Humans had just built their first ship that could travel faster than light. They were planning to send colonists to another star. Lieutenant Vex-12 approached with a datapad in his 4 hands. His young face showed excitement. This was probably his first demonstration mission. "Commander, we have located the human colony ship," Vex-12 said. His voice was high and eager. "It is called the New Horizons. 2,000 humans are aboard. They are traveling toward a star system they call Proxima Centauri." Vex-9 nodded slowly. 2,000 lives. It was a small number compared to some. Demonstrations. The Catherian homeworld had held 8 billion when they destroyed it. But the Catherians had been foolish enough to fire first. These humans had done nothing except build a ship and dream of the stars. What do we know about their military? Vex-9 asked. Vex-12 checked his datapad. "Very basic, Commander. They have primitive nuclear weapons. Some orbital platforms around. Their planet. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest ships. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours. Population centers? Approximately 8 billion humans live on Earth. They are divided into many small governments. Our analysts believe this makes them easier to control. No unified command structure. Vex-9 had seen this before. Young species often fought among themselves. It made the demonstration easier. No single leader could unite them in resistance. Not that resistance ever mattered. The Zephyrian fleet was too powerful. Target. Recommendations? Vex-9 asked. 3 major cities, Commander. New York, Beijing, and Mumbai. Each has over 10 million inhabitants. Total casualties would be approximately 30 million. Combined with destroying their colony ship, this should be sufficient to establish dominance. 30 million lives. Vex-9 felt nothing. He had learned long ago not to think about the individuals. They were numbers on a screen, statistics in a report. The needs of galactic peace required sacrifice. Better 30 million die now than billions die in a war later. Very well. Signal the fleet. Standard demonstration pattern: destroy the colony ship first. Let them watch it die before we hit the planet. Fear works better when they see what is coming. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this dozens of times. Target the ship, charge the weapons, fire, wait for surrender. File the report. Move to the next sector. Vex-9 watched the tactical display as his ships moved into position. The human colony ship was small and slow. Its engines were crude chemical rockets attached to what looked like a metal cylinder. How did such primitive beings think they could explore space with such basic technology? "Colony ship in range, Commander," reported the weapons officer. "Fire." The beam lasted only 3 seconds. The New Horizons simply vanished. 2,000 human dreams turned to atoms in empty space. The debris field would spread across several thousand kilometers before it dissipated completely. Target eliminated. "Commander, moving to planetary bombardment positions?" Vex-9 nodded. Now came the important part. The humans needed to see their cities die. They needed to understand that resistance was impossible. Fear would keep them in line for generations. Signal all ships. Simultaneous strike on the 3 target cities, full power. Leave nothing but glass. The beams struck Earth's surface at exactly the same moment. 3 bright flashes marked where millions of humans had lived just seconds before. The orbital sensors showed perfect targeting. New York was gone, Beijing was gone, Mumbai was gone. 30 million lives ended in an instant. Excellent accuracy, Vex 12 said with satisfaction. No survivors detected in any target zone. Vex 9 waited. This was always the most important moment. How would the humans respond? The smart species immediately sent surrender messages. They begged for mercy and promised to obey. The stupid species sent angry threats they could not fulfill. A few tried to launch their primitive weapons at the Zephyrian fleet. Those never reached their targets. Minutes passed. No response from Earth. Are our communication systems working correctly? X9 asked. Yes, Commander. All channels are open. We are broadcasting surrender terms in their primary languages. More minutes passed. Still nothing from the humans. Perhaps they are in shock, Vex 12 suggested. 30 million casualties would traumatize any species. They may need time to organize a response. Vex 9 frowned. Shock was normal, but even shocked species usually manage to send some kind of message, a plea for mercy, a request for terms, something. How long since the strikes? He asked. 47 minutes, Commander. That was unusual. Most species responded within 20 minutes. The longest delay Vex 9 had ever seen was 2 hours, and that was because the target species government had been completely destroyed in the demonstration. Scan. Their military installations. Are they preparing any kind of response? The sensor officer worked at his station for several minutes, detecting increased activity at multiple locations, Commander, but no weapons charging. No ships launching. It appears to be communication activity. They are sending many signals to each other. What kind of signals? Unknown, Commander. They are using encryption we cannot break, but the volume is enormous. Every human settlement is transmitting constantly. Vex 9 felt a small chill. In 300 demonstrations, he had never seen this pattern. Species either surrendered or they attacked. They did not simply increase their communications while ignoring the Zephyrian fleet entirely. Keep monitoring. Signal the Council that the demonstration has been completed successfully. Inform them that the human response is ... delayed. What are your orders for the fleet, Commander? Vex 9 considered his options. Standard procedure was to wait 48 hours for surrender. If no surrender came, they would destroy additional targets until the species submitted. No species had ever required more than 3 demonstrations. Maintain position. Monitor all human communications. Prepare target lists for additional strikes if necessary. But deep in his mind, something bothered him. The humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered before. They were not begging for mercy. They were not threatening impossible revenge. They were not even acknowledging that the Zephyrian fleet existed. They were just talking to each other, constantly, urgently, as if the deaths of 30 million of their own kind had triggered something other than fear or rage. As if they were planning something. Vex 9 pushed the thought away. What could they possibly plan? Their technology was centuries behind Zephyrian capability. Their military was laughably primitive. Their governments were divided and weak, but the communications continued hour after hour, all across their planet and their few small colonies. The humans talked and planned and transmitted in codes. The Zephyrian computers could not break, and they still had not sent a single message to the fleet. That had just killed 30 million of their people, for the first time in his long career. Commander Vex 9 began to wonder if this demonstration would go according to plan. 5 years had passed since the Zephyrian demonstration. Commander Vex 9 had filed his report and moved on to other sectors. The humans had never sent a surrender message, but they had also never attacked. Their space had gone completely dark. No trade signals. No exploration ships. No communications with other species. The Zephyrian Council decided the humans were cowering in fear. This had happened before with primitive species. Some became so traumatized they stopped using advanced technology for generations. It was actually convenient. Terrified species required no further attention, but other galactic civilizations began to notice the silence from human space. The Andromedan traders had lost contact with their few human customers. The Quellian Federation received no responses to diplomatic messages. Even the independent smugglers who traded with everyone reported that human systems were impossible to reach. Merchant Captain Irel IV of the Andromedan Trade Union brought the first real news to the Zephyrian Council. His 6 arms gestured wildly as he spoke to the assembled council members in their great crystal chamber. "Honored counselors, something is wrong in human space," Irel IV said. His voice carried the worry of someone who had lost profitable trade. "Roots. I sent 3 cargo ships to Earth over the past 2 years. None returned? No distress signals? No wreckage found? They simply vanished." Counselor Prime Zeth I leaned forward on his throne. His ancient face showed mild interest but no concern. "Perhaps the humans destroyed your ships, Merchant. Some species become aggressive after a demonstration." "No, Honored One, my ships never reached human space. They disappeared at the edge of their territory, long-range sensors show unusual activity there." "What kind of activity?" Irel IV hesitated. "Construction, Honored One, massive construction. The energy signatures are enormous, far beyond what we recorded for human civilization before the demonstration." Counselor Zeth I exchanged glances with the other council members. "You are suggesting that a primitive species has somehow advanced their technology in 5 years? Impossible. I only report what my sensors detected, Honored One. Something big is happening in human space." After the merchant left, the council debated briefly. Some members suggested sending scouts to investigate. Others believed the merchant was exaggerating to get compensation for his lost ships. In the end, they decided to wait. If the humans were building something dangerous, they would emerge eventually. The Zephyrian fleet would deal with them then. They did not know that on Earth, everything had changed. The attacks had not broken humanity. They had united it completely. Every nation on Earth had put aside their differences within hours of the strikes. The United Nations building was destroyed in the New York attack, but a new government formed in Geneva within a week. Not a government of countries, but a government of the entire human species. President Sarah Chun stood in the command center deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around her, the greatest minds of humanity worked at computer stations that ran calculations 24 hours a day. The room hummed with activity that never stopped. "Report on Project Prometheus," she said to Dr. Marcus Webb, the head of military development. Dr. Webb pulled up a holographic display. "We have successfully reverse-engineered the weapon signatures from the attack. Our best estimate is that the aliens use focused particle beams channeled through crystalline matrices. We can build similar weapons. How long? First prototype should be ready in 8 months. Full production in 18 months. President Chun nodded. 8 months was too long, but it was the best they could do. What about the ships? Admiral Santos has converted 60% of our civilian space fleet to military use. We have 400 armed vessels now, with 200 more under construction. The asteroid mining ships make excellent weapons platforms once we remove the mining equipment and the colonies. Mars base has been completely militarized. Luna City is now a fortress. The asteroid belt stations are being converted to defensive positions. If the aliens come back, they will find us ready." Dr. Webb switched to another display. "But Sarah, we need to talk about resources. Converting our entire civilization too. War production is possible, but it will require sacrifices. Food rationing, energy rationing. Every human being working toward the same goal." President Chun looked around the command center. Every person in the room had volunteered to work 18-hour shifts. Nobody complained about the sleeping quarters or the simple meals. Nobody asked for days off. The entire human species had focused on one single purpose with an intensity that no other galactic species had ever achieved. "The people understand what is at stake," she said. "We are not building weapons to conquer anyone. We are building them to survive. What if we could do more than survive?" asked Admiral Elizabeth Santos as she entered the command center. Her uniform was simple gray, but her presence commanded attention. "What if we could make them regret attacking us?" President Chun and Dr. Webb turned to face her. Admiral Santos had been a cargo ship captain before the attacks. Now she commanded the largest space fleet in human history. "What do you mean?" President Chun asked. "I have been studying the alien attack patterns," Admiral Santos said. She activated another holographic display. "They did not try to destroy our entire planet. They could have, but they chose not to. This tells us two things. First, they wanted us alive for some purpose. Second, they believed their demonstration was sufficient to control us. And they will not expect resistance. According to our analysis of galactic history, no species has ever fought back after a Zephyrian demonstration. They always surrender immediately." Dr. Webb frowned. "That makes sense. The aliens have technology hundreds of years ahead of ours. Fighting them would be suicide, would it?" Admiral Santos asked. "Or have all these other species simply accepted defeat too easily?" She changed the display to show tactical scenarios. "Advanced technology has a weakness. It makes you confident. Maybe overconfident. The aliens expected us to surrender, so they left. They are not watching us. They are not preparing for counterattack. They think the war is already over." "What are you suggesting?" President Chun asked. "I'm suggesting that we do something no galactic species has ever done. We surprise them." President Chun stared at the tactical displays. The scenarios showed human fleets attacking alien positions across multiple star systems. It looked impossible. It also looked like the only choice they had. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Unknown," Admiral Santos replied. "They might come back tomorrow. They might never come back. But if they do return, they will expect to find a broken species begging for mercy. Instead, they will find us ready for war, more than ready. Eager." President Chen made the decision that would change galactic history. Do it. Convert everything, every factory, every research facility, every resource. If they want a war, we will give them one. Across Earth and the colonies, the transformation accelerated. Children learned mathematics by calculating missile trajectories. Artists designed camouflage patterns for spaceships. Musicians composed songs to boost morale in weapons factories. Every human being became a soldier in a war that the rest of the galaxy did not know was coming. The asteroid belt became a maze of hidden weapons platforms. Mars grew massive railguns that could fire projectiles across star systems. Earth itself disappeared behind orbital defense grids that would make attacking it like flying into a star, but the most important change was not technological. It was psychological. Humanity had discovered something that the galaxy had forgotten: the desire to fight back, the refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to die before surrendering. 5 years after the Zephyrian demonstration, long-range sensors finally detected activity from human space. But the signals were not pleas for mercy or offers of surrender. They were weapons testing, ship launches, military communications. The humans were not cowering in fear. They were preparing for revenge, and they were almost ready. Counselor Prime Zeth 1 stood in the Great Council chamber, reading reports that made no sense. For 12 years, human space had been silent. No trade, no communication, no exploration. The Zephyrian Council had assumed the demonstration worked perfectly, but now the merchants were complaining louder. The Quellian Federation had lost 6 diplomatic ships near human territory. The Andromedan Trade Union reported massive energy signatures coming from the Sol system. Even the independent pirates avoided that region of space now. "Perhaps we should send an envoy," suggested Counselor Kex 7. Her young voice carried uncertainty. "The humans have had enough time to accept their place in the galactic order. We should formally welcome them and establish tribute payments. Zeth 1 nodded slowly. It was time to finish what they had started 12 years ago. Prepare a diplomatic fleet, nothing too large. The humans should not feel threatened. Include enough escort ships to show our strength, but not enough to restart their... Dear, how many ships, Honored One? 50 vessels should be sufficient. Include the diplomatic cruiser Peaceful Dawn and enough firepower to handle any minor resistance. Counselor Keck 7 bowed. I will lead the mission personally if you permit. Excellent. Show the humans the benefits of cooperation. Establish trade. Agreements. Set up tribute schedules. Standard integration procedures. 3 weeks later, the Zephyrian diplomatic fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Counselor Keck 7 stood on the bridge of the Peaceful Dawn, expecting to see a primitive system with basic orbital platforms and a few small ships. Instead, she saw a fortress. Mars was no longer a red planet. Its surface was covered with massive structures that could only be weapons platforms. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been transformed into a defensive network of interconnected stations. Even from this distance, the energy readings were enormous. Counselor, said the sensor officer, his voice shaking slightly, I am detecting thousands of armed vessels in this system. The defensive installations appear to be ... military grade. Very advanced military grade. Keck 7 stared at the tactical display. This was not possible. 12 years ago, the humans had primitive nuclear weapons and basic rockets. Now they had built defenses that rivaled major galactic powers. Signal Earth, she ordered. Standard diplomatic. Protocols. Request permission to approach and begin integration negotiations. The communications officer worked at his station for several minutes. Counselor, we are receiving a response. But it is not from the planetary government. It is from something called the Terran Defense Force. Put it on screen. The main viewer flickered and showed a human woman in a gray military uniform. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. Behind her, Keck 7 could see what looked like a military command center with dozens of humans working at tactical stations. I am Admiral Elizabeth Santos of the Terran Defense Force, the human said. Her voice was steady and cold. You are the aliens who destroyed our colony ship and murdered 3 million of our civilians 12 years ago. Keck 7 felt a chill. The human was not begging for mercy. She was not offering surrender. She was stating facts like a prosecutor reading charges. I am Counselor Keck 7 of the Zephyrian Council, she replied, using her most diplomatic voice. I come in peace to welcome humanity into the galactic community. The demonstration 12 years ago was a necessary step to establish order and prevent future conflicts. Admiral Santos smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. You destroyed our colony ship. You murdered 3 million civilians. You picked this fight. Her voice grew harder with each word. Now let's finish it. The communication cut off. For a moment, the bridge of the Peaceful Dawn was completely silent. Then every alarm started screaming at once. Counselor, shouted the sensor. Officer. Massive energy spikes across the entire system. Every asteroid, every platform, every ship is powering weapons. Raise shields, all ships defensive formation, but it was too late. The humans had not been preparing for 12 years to fight fair. The first wave of attack came from the asteroid belt. Hundreds of hidden weapons platforms opened fire simultaneously. These were not the primitive kinetic weapons the Zephyrians expected. They were particle beams that cut through shields like they were made of paper. The second wave came from Mars. The massive railguns, built into the planet's surface, fired projectiles the size of spaceships at significant fractions of light speed. 3 Zephyrian escort vessels simply vanished when the projectiles hit them. The third wave was the most terrifying. Hundreds of human ships that had been hiding behind asteroids and moons suddenly appeared. They did not look like any military vessels in the galactic databases. They looked like cargo ships and mining platforms, but they were armed with weapons that should not have existed. Return fire, Keck 7 ordered. All ships engage. The Zephyrian fleet was among the most advanced in the galaxy. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy planets. Their shields could withstand attacks from entire fleets. But they had never faced an enemy that had spent 12 years preparing for this exact moment. The humans did not fight like any species in galactic history. Their ships did not retreat when damaged. Instead, they accelerated toward the Zephyrian vessels, firing continuously until they either destroyed their target or died trying. When human ships were too damaged to fight, their crews rammed them into Zephyrian vessels. "Counselor," the tactical officer reported, "we have lost 18 ships in the first 10 minutes. The humans are using suicide tactics." "That is impossible. No civilized species fights that way." But the humans were not following civilized rules of warfare. They were fighting like they had nothing to lose and everything to win. Every human ship that died took at least 2 Zephyrian vessels with it. Admiral Santos appeared on the communication screen again. Behind her, tactical displays showed the battle from the human perspective. The Zephyrian fleet was losing. "Counselor Keck 7, the Admiral said calmly. "You came here to finish integrating us into your empire. But you misunderstood something fundamental about our species." "What?" Keck 7 asked, watching another group of her ships disappear under concentrated human fire. "We do not surrender. We do not accept defeat. We do not forgive attacks on our people." Admiral Santos leaned forward. "We have spent 12 years preparing for this moment. Every human being in this system has dedicated their life to making you regret coming here." The battle raged for 6 more hours. The Zephyrian fleet had started with 50 ships, the most powerful 50 ships that most galactic species had ever seen. When it was over, only 7 vessels remained functional enough to escape. Counselor Keck 7 was not among the survivors. Her ship, the Peaceful Dawn, had been destroyed when 3 human vessels rammed it simultaneously after their weapons failed, the 7 surviving. Zephyrian ships jumped to faster-than-light speed as soon as their engines recharged. Behind them, the Sol system returned to its defensive posture. But now the humans were broadcasting a message on all galactic frequencies. Admiral Santos spoke to the entire galaxy. Her words were translated into hundreds of languages and transmitted to every civilized world, to all species under Zephyrian control. "You have lived in fear for thousands of years. You have accepted defeat before trying to fight. You have forgotten that freedom is worth dying for." She paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. Today, humanity showed that the Zephyrian Empire can be defeated. Their ships can be destroyed. Their fleets can be beaten. You are not alone anymore. Resistance is possible. Victory is possible. If you are ready to fight for your freedom, contact the Terran Defense Force. We will teach you how to win. The message reached every world in Zephyrian space within days. For the first time in millennia, species across the galaxy began to remember what hope felt like. The war was just beginning. The news of the defeat at Sol reached the Zephyrian homeworld 3 days later. Counselor Prime Zeth 1 read the report 7 times before he could believe it. 50 ships destroyed. Counselor Keck 7 dead. The diplomatic mission turned into a military disaster, but worse than the military losses was what happened next. Admiral Santos's message spread across the galaxy faster than any news in galactic history. Species that had not spoken against Zephyrian rule for thousands of years began asking dangerous questions. "Mobilize the entire fleet," Zeth 1 ordered the military commanders. "This human rebellion ends now." General Mex 3 stepped forward, his battle scars showing his centuries of experience. "Honored Counselor, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans clearly have advanced technology. Maybe we should negotiate." "Negotiate?" Zeth 1's voice filled with rage. "They destroyed 50 of our ships. If we negotiate with rebels, every species in the galaxy will think they can defy us." "But sir, if they could defeat 50 ships, what if they can defeat more?" Zeth 1 slammed his fist on the council table. "Impossible. They are one primitive species on the edge of nowhere. We rule 800 worlds. Our fleet has 10,000. Ships, they cannot possibly resist our full might. The order went out across Zephyrian space. Every military vessel was recalled. Every soldier was prepared for war. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire would use its complete military power against a single enemy. But while the Zephyrians prepared their massive fleet, humanity was not waiting. Admiral Santos stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching tactical displays that showed human strike forces across 12 star systems. The humans had not spent 12 years just building defenses. They had built the largest attack fleet in galactic history. Strike Team Alpha reports ready, announced Captain Torres from the communication station. All targets acquired in the Kepler sector. Strike Team Beta ready in the Vega region, added Captain Kim. Strike Team Gamma positioned near Zephyrian supply lines in the Centauri cluster, Admiral Santos nodded. The humans had learned from studying galactic military history. The Zephyrians always gathered their fleets at their homeworlds before attacking. This gave humanity time to strike first at their supply lines and outposts. Execute Operation Payback, Admiral Santos ordered, across 3 sectors of space. Human fleets emerged from hiding and attacked Zephyrian installations simultaneously. These were not the desperate defensive battles of Sol, these were coordinated strikes by forces that had trained for 12 years to fight this exact war. The Zephyrian outpost at Kepler 442 was defended by 20 ships and orbital weapons platforms. The human strike force arrived with 40 vessels, but they were not the crude converted cargo ships that fought at Sol. These were purpose-built warships, designed by people who understood both human determination and alien technology. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Kepler 442 outpost was destroyed and every Zephyrian ship was either dead or retreating. The humans lost 8 vessels, but each dying ship took multiple enemies with it. Similar scenes played out across Zephyrian space. Supply convoys vanished. Communication stations went silent. Military bases sent desperate requests for reinforcement before their signals cut off forever. But the most important victory was not military. It was psychological. On the crystal world of Quelio's speaker, for the depths, Xiaorui watched the news broadcasts with growing amazement. Her people had lived under Zephyrian rule for 2,000 years. They had forgotten what freedom looked like. The humans are actually winning, whispered her aide Kolfen. His crystalline body vibrated with excitement. They destroyed an entire sector command. Xiaorui studied the tactical reports. The humans were not just lucky. They were skilled. They fought with coordination and purpose that suggested years of preparation. Most importantly, they fought like they expected to win. Contact our military commanders, she ordered. Tell them to prepare the old defense plans. Speaker, are you suggesting rebellion? I am suggesting that if the humans can fight back, perhaps we can too. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Andromedan Trade Union quietly began converting their merchant fleets back to military configuration. The Spiral Empire started moving their hidden ships to strategic positions. The Outer Rim Confederacy began jamming Zephyrian communications. The humans had done more than win battles. They had shown the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire could be beaten. General Mex III brought the disturbing news to Counselor Prime Zeth I in the Great Council Chamber. Honored Counselor, we have lost contact with 17 military installations in the past week. Our scouts report human ships operating in 6 different sectors. How is that possible? They are one species. Sir, our intelligence suggests they have been building their fleet for over a decade. Their ship numbers may exceed our estimates. Zeth I studied the galactic map showing red zones where Zephyrian control was failing. What about the other species? Are they remaining loyal? General Mex III hesitated. There are ... concerns. Several worlds have stopped sending tribute. Others are not responding to our communications. Send enforcement fleets to those worlds immediately? Sir, that is part of the problem. If we send ships to control rebellious worlds, we have fewer ships to fight the humans. But if we do not control the rebellions, we may face attacks from multiple species. For the first time in his long life, Counselor Prime Zeth-1 felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear, not fear of death in battle, but fear that the galactic order he had known all his life was falling apart. "How many ships do we need to destroy the human home system?" he asked. "Our analysts estimate at least 2,000 vessels, sir. Their defenses are extremely strong." "And how many ships do we need to control rebellions across our territory?" "At least 5,000. Sir, possibly more if multiple species rebel simultaneously." Zeth-1 realized the terrible truth. The Zephyrian Empire had controlled the galaxy through fear and overwhelming force. But that strategy only worked when enemies fought one at a time. The humans had shown other species that resistance was possible. Now the Empire faced the prospect of fighting dozens of species simultaneously. "Prepare the main fleet," he ordered finally. "We will destroy the humans first. That will show the other species what happens to rebels." But even as he gave the order, Zeth-1 knew it might be too late. The humans had awakened something in the galaxy that had been sleeping for millennia, the desire for freedom, the willingness to fight, the hope that victory was possible. Admiral Santos received the intelligence reports about Zephyrian fleet movements from her network of spies across the galaxy. Many of those spies were not human. They were members of other species who had been inspired by humanity's example. "They are gathering everything they have," reported Intelligence Chief Harrison. "Our estimates suggest 8,000 ships massing at their home system." 8,000, Admiral Santos smiled grimly. "More than we can fight directly. Admiral, some of our allies are asking if we should retreat, find a defensible position and wait for them to come to us." "No," Santos said firmly, "we do not retreat, we do not hide. We do not wait for the enemy to choose the time and place of battle." She activated the galactic communication system. Her message would reach every world in known space within hours. "To all free peoples of the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire is gathering its fleets for one final assault. They believe that by destroying humanity, they can restore their control over your worlds." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They are wrong. This war is no longer about humanity alone. It is about the freedom of every species in the galaxy. We call upon all who desire freedom to join us. Bring your ships. Bring your weapons. Bring your courage. Together we will show the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated. The final battle is coming, and we intend to win it." Across the galaxy, species that had not fought in millennia began preparing for war. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled near the Zephyrian homeworld. 8,000 ships formed perfect battle lines that stretched across millions of kilometers. Counselor Prime Zeth-1 stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive display of power that had taken months to gather. "This ends today," he declared to his commanders. "We will destroy the humans and every species that dares to support them. The galaxy will remember why they feared us for 3,000 years." General Mex 3 studied the tactical displays with growing concern. "Sir, our scouts report massive fleet movements across the galaxy. Multiple species are moving ships toward human space." "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. At least 2,000 confirmed. Possibly many more. The Quellian Federation has mobilized their entire crystal fleet. The Andromedan Trade Union converted their merchant vessels. Even minor species are sending what ships they have." Zeth-1 felt anger burning in his chest. This was supposed to be a simple punishment mission against one rebellious species. Instead, it had become a war against half the galaxy. "It does not matter," he said finally. "We still outnumber them. Our technology is still superior. Our ships are built for war, not converted from cargo vessels and mining platforms." But, as he spoke, Zeth-1 wondered if that was true. The humans had shown disturbing skill in their battles. Their allies might be more dangerous than expected. "Begin the advance," he ordered. "All ships maximum speed to human space. We end this rebellion before it spreads further." The Zephyrian Armada began moving through faster-than-light space toward the Sol system. It would take 3 days to reach their target. Behind them, they left their homeworlds defended by only a few hundred ships. Never in galactic history had the Zephyrians committed so much of their fleet to a single battle. Admiral Santos watched the enemy approach from her command center on Luna Base. 3 days was not much time, but it was enough. Her message had reached every corner of the galaxy. Now she would see how many species were willing to fight for their freedom. The first Allied ships arrived within hours. The Quellian crystal vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like diamonds. Speaker Shalray appeared on the communication screen, her crystalline features showing determination. "Admiral Santos," she said in her musical voice, "the Quellian Federation places our fleet under your command. We have 600 ships ready to fight." More fleets arrived throughout the day. The Andromedans brought 800 converted merchant vessels armed with improvised weapons. The Spiral Empire contributed 400 sleek warships they had kept hidden for centuries. Dozens of smaller species sent what ships they could spare. The second day, Admiral Santos commanded the largest Allied fleet in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships from 40 different species filled the space around Sol, but she knew it might not be enough. The Zephyrians still had superior numbers and technology. "Admiral," reported Captain Torres, "final count shows 3,200 Allied vessels. Enemy fleet estimated at 8,000 ships." Admiral Santos studied the tactical displays. The numbers were against them, but numbers were not everything. The Zephyrians expected to fight frightened species using defensive tactics. They would get something very different. "Signal all fleet commanders," she ordered. "Operation Freedom begins in 6 hours." She activated the general communication channel. Every ship in the Allied fleet could hear her words. "Warriors of the galaxy," she began. "Today we fight not just for our own worlds, but for the future of every species in known space. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire has controlled us through fear. They made us believe that resistance was impossible, that their technology was too advanced, that their fleets were too powerful." She paused, looking at the tactical display showing thousands of ships from dozens of species. "They were wrong. We are here. We are united. We are ready to fight. Today we show the galaxy that freedom is not something that can be given or taken away. It is something we claim for ourselves. Remember this moment. Remember that you stood with humanity when the galaxy needed heroes. Remember that you chose to fight instead of surrender. Whatever happens today, we face it together." The enemy fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system 6 hours later. Counselor Prime Zeth-1 expected to see human ships trying to hide behind their planetary defenses. Instead, he found the largest fleet he had ever seen waiting in open space. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, his voice shaking, "I count over 3,000 enemy vessels, multiple species. They are not running." Zeth-1 stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Species that had not fought in millennia had brought their fleets to die alongside the humans. The rebellion had spread far beyond what he had imagined possible. "They think their numbers will save them," he said finally. "They are still outgunned. Begin the attack." The Battle of Sol began with the largest exchange of fire in galactic history. 8,000 Zephyrian ships opened fire simultaneously, their advanced weapons designed to break enemy fleets quickly. But the Allied fleet did not break. The Quellian crystal ships absorbed and redirected energy weapons back at their attackers. The Andromedan vessels used their knowledge of Zephyrian technology to target weak points in enemy shields. The human ships fought with the same desperate courage they had shown for 14 years, but it was the smaller species that made the difference. The Cathari brought ships that could phase through solid matter. The Vorthan used gravity weapons that crushed enemy vessels. The Nexari had developed energy fields that made their ships nearly invisible for the first time in their history. The Zephyrians faced enemies who fought with tactics they did not understand, using technologies they had never seen. "Sir!" shouted the tactical officer on Zeth-1's flagship. "We have lost over 1,000 ships in the first hour. Enemy casualties are much lower than projected. How is that possible? They are not fighting like any enemy in our databases, sir. Each species uses different tactics. We cannot predict their movements. Zeth-1 watched his perfect battle plan fall apart. The Zephyrian fleet was designed to fight enemies who followed standard galactic military doctrine. But the Allied fleet included species who had developed their own unique approaches to warfare. During centuries of hiding from Zephyrian control, the battle raged for 18 hours. Both fleets took terrible losses, but the Zephyrians were losing faster. Their superior technology meant nothing when they faced 40 different fighting styles. Simultaneously, Admiral Santos watched the tactical displays from the bridge of her flagship, the Terran Victory. Around her, officers from a dozen species worked together to coordinate the most complex military operation in galactic history. "Admiral," reported the Quellian tactical officer, "enemy fleet cohesion is breaking down. Their central command ship is isolated. All ships," Santos announced, "final assault. Target the Zephyrian flagship, end this war." The remaining Allied vessels, nearly 2,000 ships from dozens of species, converged on Counselor Prime Zeth-1's massive command vessel. The flagship was the most advanced ship in the Zephyrian fleet, but it could not withstand the combined firepower of an entire galaxy fighting for freedom. The explosion of the Zephyrian flagship marked the end of 3,000 years of galactic tyranny. The remaining enemy ships, less than 1,000 vessels, fled toward their homeworlds. The rebellion had become a revolution. The revolution had become a victory. Admiral Santos broadcast to the entire galaxy from the bridge of the Terran Victory. Behind her, officers from 40 species worked together to coordinate relief efforts for the massive battle. "People of the galaxy," she said, "the Zephyrian Empire is defeated, their fleets are scattered, their control is broken. But this victory belongs to all of us. Humanity did not win this war alone, we won it together." She looked directly into the camera, speaking to billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. A Quellian diplomat once asked me why humans fought when every other species had accepted defeat. I told her that someone has to be first. Someone has to show that the impossible is just another word for not yet accomplished. Today we accomplished the impossible. Not because we were stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because we refused to believe we were beaten. Because we stood together when it mattered most. The galaxy was alone in its submission to tyranny until humanity showed that fighting back was possible. But humanity was alone in its resistance until the galaxy showed that freedom was worth fighting for. Now, none of us will ever be alone. Again, in the months that followed, the galaxy rebuilt under a new council where every species had an equal voice. The Zephyrian survivors were not destroyed or enslaved. They were invited to join the new galactic community as equals. Some accepted. Others retreated to their home worlds to reconsider their place in a galaxy that had chosen freedom over fear, and at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what they had always done. They looked toward the stars and wondered what was possible. The difference was that now, the entire galaxy was looking with them.